Have you ever wondered who you have to become in order to build something meaningful? In the last episode, we talked about the emotional reality of playing the long game in business. And today, I want to share the personal side of that journey, who I had to become in order to build Beauty by Tammy. Because when people look at a business, they usually see the finished product. They see the brand, the website, the products, the results. But what most people don't see is the person you had to become in order to build it. Because building something meaningful doesn't just change your circumstances. It changes you, your mindset, your confidence, your resilience. And today, in this final episode of season 1, I want to share something much more personal. Not just how Beauty by Tammy was built, but who I had to become in order to build it. Welcome to Behind the Lash with Tammy, where we talk about the real stories behind building a beauty business, the decisions, the lessons, and the mindset that shape not just your career, but who you become in the process. I'm Tammy, founder of Beauty by Tammy. And if you've been listening throughout this first season, thank you for being part of this journey with me. When I first started in the beauty industry, I didn't have a big vision for a brand. I wasn't thinking about products. I wasn't thinking about entrepreneurship. I was thinking about something much more personal. I was thinking about being a mother. Becoming a mom changes everything. Your priorities shift. Your time becomes more precious. And for me, that perspective shaped so many of the decisions I made about my career. Those who are close to me know that I was born with a uterine abnormality. This presented many health challenges along the way in what I would call my female journey. When I was younger, I just thought, I have painful periods, and I just accepted it as normal. It wasn't until I got married and my husband and I really wanted to at least have one child. We had discussed starting a family when we were first dating, and we both landed on, let's have one. This child would be a great addition to our little family. I was never really all about having kids. I didn't see getting married, starting a family as the be all and end all of my happiness. I was more career driven. Those who knew me well and knew me for decades knew that I had ambitions, I had goals, I had things I wanted to achieve in my life. I definitely put a lot of emphasis on achieving these ambitious goals that I had since I was a young child. Starting a family just felt like one of the stops that I had to make in my life journey. What I didn't count on was that my uterine abnormality would come into play and really change the trajectory of my life. When I talk about a uterine abnormality, you might be completely lost and saying, okay, where is Tammy going with this? I am going to get personal and vulnerable and share a little bit more about my health challenges and how I was born a little bit different than everybody. My uterine abnormality is called a double uterus, and the medical term for it is a bicornuate uterus. That means that when I was a fetus in my mom's belly, the way girls develop their internal organs, a normal developing uterus would be just one uterus, and as it develops as a fetus, it would look like an upside down pear. I was born with a double uterus, meaning that's two uteruses stuck together. As a fetus, as it grows, it looks heart-shaped because it's two uteruses stuck together. Now, there are different variations of uterine abnormalities. Some can be like one side is bigger than the other. And then there's usually a septum that is in the middle that separates the two uteruses that are stuck together. It wasn't until I was married and we experienced infertility for 5 years. We had a desire to get pregnant, but had difficulty getting pregnant as a married couple. We did seek help from a fertility clinic, and we did the normal testing on my husband and I. And we discovered that this uterine abnormality was preventing me from getting pregnant naturally. My doctor had advised us that if I wanted to get a surgery done to remove the septum it would increase the chances of me getting pregnant. And I had to sign a consent form to allow him to go in there blind. He's like, I'm very good at what I do, but I don't know what I'm dealing with. And I won't know what to do until I get in there. But once I get in there, and he did a laparoscopy on me to get in, and he lasered off the septum. So he made it one whole uterus, but I'm still heart-shaped. The doctor said, you're born the way you're born. You were born with two uteruses stuck together. That's what we call a double uterus, this bicornuate uterus. But I have now removed the septums. It's now one whole uterus. You know the story of phantom leg syndrome, where people have hurt their leg and had to have one of their legs amputated, and yet they still feel pain in that phantom leg. I have phantom uterus syndrome. I made that up, totally made it up. And it's because prior to this laparoscopy, prior to the surgery, I would have double periods, meaning one side would come and then stop for a few days, and then the other side would come. So even after the surgery, I still had the double period. Yes, that's how crazy this is. I share this because I understand that I am one out of 400 women who was successfully able to get pregnant. That is winning the baby lottery. 1 in 400 women with my medical condition get pregnant. When I got pregnant naturally, 1 year after the surgery, Alexis, I truly felt so lucky. This is why she's always been so special to me. Her and I have a wonderful connection. It's out of this world, and she is my miracle baby. I've always felt so grateful that I got to be a mom because of her. This sweet, beautiful baby came into my life after everything that I've been through. I just cherished being her mom. And when she was 3, she got diagnosed with autism. I knew that she needed a lot of support and presence from me. Raising a daughter on the autism spectrum really made me think differently about what I needed my life to look like. I realized that I needed a career that allowed me to be present, not just physically there, but truly present. And I remember thinking at the time, I don't know anything about autism. I thought it only affected boys. My knowledge about autism was very, very little. I knew I needed something that allowed me to build a life where I don't feel like I'm constantly choosing between work and being there for my family. I knew Alexis would need a lot of intensive therapy at age 3 because she wasn't talking, she wasn't developing the way a neurotypical was at her age. She wasn't hitting those milestones at the baby wellness checkups. And that's really where this journey began, not from a big business dream, but from a desire to create something that worked for both my family and me. As I started working as a lash artist, I fell in love with the craft. There's something so fulfilling about creating beautiful work with your hands. At that point, I wasn't thinking about building a brand. I was just trying to get better, learning, practicing, growing. And after more than a decade in this industry, working with clients, teaching students, and developing products, you start to see things differently. You start noticing patterns, what works, what doesn't, and how much inconsistency can affect not just your results, but your confidence as an artist. I remember thinking there has to be a better way to do this, because when your tools aren't consistent, it doesn't just affect your work. It affects how you feel about your work. And that's when I started developing my standards, not just doing things quickly, but doing things well. At some point, I realized something. If I wanted better tools, I might have to create them myself. And that realization was both exciting and scary, because creating something is one thing, but putting your name on it, standing behind it, believing in it enough to share it with the industry, that requires a completely different level of belief. I remember thinking, this isn't just about making something. This is about standing behind it. And that's not easy. But I also knew that artists like me and artists like you deserved better. They deserved products they could rely on, products that supported their work instead of making it harder. And that's what led to the creation of Passion and Vision adhesives. Not because I wanted to start a brand, but because I wanted to raise the standard. If you've been with me since the beginning, you know that Passion and Vision at one point had different kinds of adhesives. I had a low humidity one and a high humidity one, and then I had the regular Passion and the regular Vision, although it wasn't called Passion and Vision at the time. It was called Master, Pro, and Star. So I had multiple adhesives going on because I was reacting to the fact that I was in a 4-season country. And that makes it very difficult to lash when you have these great swings in temperature and humidity. And if you've listened to my previous episodes, you know that environment really, really affects how your adhesive behaves. These inconsistencies makes it very difficult to lash as a lash artist. If you don't understand that, you're going to constantly blame yourself, think that you're bad at this when you're not. That truly changed how I saw myself in the beginning versus how I saw myself later on as a lash artist. There was actually a moment in my journey where everything shifted, and not in the way I expected. Like so many people, the pandemic changed everything, not just in business, but in life. And for me, it ultimately led to the closure of my salon. That wasn't something I had planned. It wasn't something I wanted, and it definitely wasn't something I saw coming. It was something I had built, something I had invested so much time and energy into, and letting that go wasn't easy. I think we often believe that if we work hard enough, if we plan carefully enough, things will go the way we expect. But life doesn't always work like that. Business doesn't always work like that. Sometimes things shift. Sometimes things end. And sometimes you're forced to pivot in ways you never planned for. I remember thinking during that time, what now? What does this mean for me? Who am I without this version of my business? And that was a defining moment. Because I had a choice, I could hold on to what was, or I could accept the things had changed and figure out how to move forward. And that's when I realized something important. Learning how to pivot is part of becoming who you need to be. What I didn't fully understand at the beginning was that building a business isn't just about growth. It's about change, unexpected change, the kind that forces you to let go of what you thought your path would look like. There was a part of me that wanted to hold on to what I had built because it was familiar, because it felt like part of my identity. But growth doesn't just come from building. It also comes from letting go, from making peace with the version of yourself that existed in a different season of your life. And that's not easy, but it's necessary. And I don't think I became more talented. I think I became more adaptable, more open to change, more willing to trust that even when things don't go as planned, there's still a path forward. Today, when I look at Beauty by Tammy, I don't just see products. I see the journey behind them, the lessons, the pivots, the moments I didn't expect, but had to go through. And honestly, one of the things I'm most grateful for is that through all those changes, I was still able to be present for Alexis when she grew up. Because at the end of the day, that was always the reason I started. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Life and business rarely turn out the way you expect, but that doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Sometimes it just means you're being guided toward a different one. And learning how to accept that, making peace with what was, and move forward anyway, that's part of becoming who you're meant to be. Before we close out on season 1, I want to say thank you. This podcast really started as a love letter to the beauty and lash industry, an industry that has given me so much. It gave me a career I care deeply about, a creative outlet, and the ability to build a life that aligns with my values. I also want to thank my husband, Paul, my family, especially my mom and 2 brothers, and the friends who have supported me along the way, because none of this is done alone. And to you, if you're listening right now, thank you for being part of this journey. It truly means more than you know. We're going to take a short break, but season 2 will be back on June the 1st. And the conversations are going to go even deeper into leadership, entrepreneurship, and what it really takes to build something meaningful. So make sure you're following the show so you don't miss it. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to follow the show and leave a rating or review. And if you want to explore the products I created for artists who value consistency and standards, you can visit beautybytammy.ca. I'll leave all the information in the show notes. Until then, keep building something you believe in, and I'll see you in season 2.